Greetings all. Welcome to Management 570, and this is your very first lecture on the intro to HR management and the state of work and jobs. In order for us to really understand how we manage people and how we manage our HR functions, we need to understand what work and jobs mean, and we need to understand a little bit about what is the scope of activities that are required for people in the HR function. So this lecture will cover that to start with, and then we'll move into recent trends in work and jobs and hot topics that we should be paying attention to in the organization. So let me know if you have any questions. There are many different definitions for what human resource management means, but basically they have a commonality, which is it's all about people, how we manage them in the organization, and we do it in a way that's effective and efficient to help the organization achieve its goals. That's the primary emphasis. So I like the last definition at the bottom, the one that's italicized, designing management systems to ensure that human talent is used effectively and efficiently to accomplish organizational goals. And so human resource management is how we manage people. Now, the human resource function in the organization goes a bit beyond that, which we'll discuss in the next slide. But this definition here encompasses also what you will do as managers or future managers, that you are going to be working with the human talent that are underneath you to get them to do the work that you want them to do to accomplish the goals that the organization sets for you. So that's how we want to proceed in thinking about this and thinking about the course. HR is typically centered in a number of different places. It could be centered in-house, it could be outsourced, and also it's, as we say, as you'll see at the bottom, who else does HR? Well, you do as managers. You will be doing different aspects of HR, not the whole HR function. We'll talk specifically about what HR's job is in this role, but let's start at the top and talk about when HR is housed inside the organization, what does that mean? Sometimes in a small business, if you're a small entrepreneurial business, basically your CEO or your top management team share in the responsibility for human resource management. Typically, we start to see when organizations hit 50 to 100 employees, they start to formalize the HR function, usually in the form of a department of some sort. Now, I did some research on this a number of years ago, and the sweet spot number was about 100. But I will tell you that I think as times have changed and we've recognized how important HR is to organizations, very likely that number has gone down to around 50. And I've worked in organizations, small organizations that have had a very clear HR department attached to it. So let's assume now we've grown big enough. We now have our own standalone department, and it still can be more fine-tuned from there. Do you have your own standalone department that is part of the C-suite, your chief HR officer, CHRO, or chief personnel officer, CPO, whatever term people want to give it. It varies from company to company. It's often quite clever depending on how the company emphasizes the importance of human capital in their organization. But the goal for any HR professional and for any organization should be to have their HR function as an equivalent of chief marketing, chief operations, chief this, chief that. They should be at that C-suite level because they are the policy makers. They're the ones that know the human capital makeup of the organization. They know how to set up the policies. They know how to make those work. So if we don't do that, that's going to be, we're going to see more of a structure like the one in the bullet point right below that, where they might be listed under the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, or the COO, the Chief Operations Officer. If they're under the CFO, typically it's under the accounting or the financial services option, and they only see it as an expense center, right? Yes, we know that HR is a cost center, but it can create policies to help us to generate better revenue. So the goal is, even though you have to spend money to make money, under the CFO, the focus is on cost cutting mostly, or cost management mostly, not on doing good HR policies that make the most sense for the organization. Because again, I stand by my statement of you have to spend money to make money. You have to train your people. You have to make sure they have the skill set they need to do the jobs. You have to support them. You have to pay them fairly. All those things, which we will get into over the course of the semester. If you're at the C-suite level, you have what we call the strategic seat at the table. You can have an impact on the strategic initiatives of the organization, and you work well as a partner with other C-suite executives to help the organization move forward in the way that they want it to be done. So let's assume that as the small organization, you decide in-house is not really an option for you, but as the CEO or top management team, you really just don't have the wherewithal to manage your HR. You can outsource your HR function. You can actually outsource the whole thing to a leasing company. Basically, all your employees are employees of the leasing company, and then you lease them back and you pay a fee and the leasing company manages them. That is not as popular anymore, but we can outsource all or part of the HR functions that we do in the organization. For example, we can hire a consultant to do job analysis. We can pay paychecks to do payroll for us. There are employee relations companies and recruiting agencies and selection and training agencies that can do all of that work for us if we really don't have the skill set in-house. Probably the most common one to outsource, the easiest one to do is payroll, right? Because compensation is fairly straightforward. We make determinations about what we want to pay people, and the payroll company just administers all of that. And they do all the paperwork, they do all the check writing, they do all that sort of stuff. The other popular way that we outsource a lot of our HR function is by outsourcing training and development. We might have an HR professional in the company who understands what needs to be done, but they may not have the knowledge or the in-house skill to develop a training program. So they might go to a local community college that has a training and development function attached to it, a workforce development program. They might go to a consulting company, or they might go to standalone employer associations that could do all sorts of things for you. I actually do consulting work with a group called AAIM, Employer Association, and they do all of these aspects of HR if you want them to, which is kind of fun. And again, at the bottom, we said, who else should do HR? Well, that would be you, because this is about partnership, and it's about the role that HR plays in the company and how you can learn how to work in partnership with them. So one of your readings today talks about strategic HR and the history of all this and how we tie in HR activities and management activities and how we need to support each other. If you consider HR your enemy, that's how it's going to work out for you. But if you consider HR somebody that you can partner with, somebody that can help you with making good decisions, to help you with personnel problems, to help train you how to do good interviews, those sorts of things, they have that skill set and they should be offering that to you if you have a good, strong HR function in the company. So let's talk a little bit about human capital. And you probably learned this in your basic business classes, right? What are the 4 different kinds of assets that an organization has? And we think about this from an accounting perspective, right? We've got the value of our land, the value of our building, the value of our financial resources, and even some intangible values for our patents and our IT systems, what the costs are for them and what benefit they bring to us. And then we have human capital. While investments is considered to be an investment, right, for physical plant or for financial, and sometimes for the intangibles like patents and IT systems, human capital is often just classified as a cost center. And so therefore, our job is only to manage the costs. But the mindset really should be human capital should be invested in. We need to invest in our people by making sure they have the talent, the capabilities, the expertise needed to do the work. Because without employees, you don't really have an organization. You might have a CEO, but who are they managing and what are they managing? The people who do the work every day are an important part of this. And when we think about the concept of followership and leadership, Often people put the leader at the top and the subordinates all the way at the bottom, or some places get a little funky and they go, oh, our employees are at the top and the leadership should be at the bottom. And those are, companies that think about servant leadership and things like that. But really, what is at the center, right, is not senior officials or junior officials, but actually the mission of the company. And leaders play a role and followers play a role. So investing in your followers is as important as investing in your physical plant, your financials, your intangibles, your senior executives. Everybody should be invested in to enhance the capabilities of the organization as a whole. That's our job. So here's the interesting thing, though. Which of those resources, if you will, wake up on Monday morning and decide whether or not they want to go into work? Physical plant doesn't. Physical plant behaves the way it's supposed to behave unless there's a breakdown. Financial resources behave as they're expected to, right? We put money in the stock market. We expect investments to go up or down as predicted based on economic issues. Our cash in the bank should be earning some interest, maybe not a lot, but it should earn some interest for us. Right now, I guess I have a savings account that's like 4.3%, so that's not too bad. Then our intangibles things, our IT systems, we write the code and the code processes the way that we manage our information technology. Patents, we write patents to protect the competitive advantage and the technology that we have in our company. None of them behave unpredictably. They all behave in a way as expected. It's the human function that becomes the challenge for the organization, because literally they can decide whether or not they want to work for you. They can decide whether or not they want to work hard or they want to come in late or leave early. Now, you say there might be consequences for that. Absolutely. But people have minds of their own, and our job is to make sure they don't decide to come in late and leave early. We need to understand what motivates them. Hence, what we will be talking about in this first module is about motivation as well. We need to also understand what they value. We need to understand the pride that they take in doing their work. All of these things absolutely matter, and that's why we need to invest in them. So remember that human beings are the only asset that we have that actually has its own mind. And so we do need to do work to figure out what those people want or believe in. Even though I know Scott Adams and Dilbert has fallen a little out of favor for a whole host of reasons, I do happen to like this one in particular comic, and I remember reading it in a Sunday newspaper column somewhere back in the day, and I've kept copies of it because I think it's flipping awesome. And if you read through it, you see, right, the pointy-haired boss introduces Alice to the newest member of the management team, and he says, oh, he's qualified. He has an MBA. So remember, management, right? So he has an MBA. So she says, oh, well, that's impressive. You must have been taught about how to motivate employees. Well, no. Well, how about how to identify and hire good people? Well, that might have been optional. Did you learn how to negotiate? Did you learn how to think strategically? Did you learn how to write? Business writing? All the answers are no, no, and no. But it was mostly finance and accounting and economics. Right, so you're a highly qualified leader because you're good at math. Obviously, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but the most important lesson from here to take from here isn't that finance and accounting and economics are not important. It's that HR, people, motivation, strategy, negotiation, hiring, and firing are just as important as finance and accounting and economics. We need all the tools in the toolbox. We need to manage our people to do the work. We need to make sure we've got the money to support it. We need to make sure we've got an accurate representation of the value of our company and accounting, and we need to understand economics, what's going on outside of the company, and then the managerial economics of what's going on inside the company. All of those things matter, not just the math-based stuff. So just keep that in mind. I will tell you a little story. I had one of my MBA students from my previous university had graduated, did well, came back about a year later, and he said, "I have to apologize to you, Professor Berkeley." And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? You haven't done anything to offend me. What are you talking about? And he said, "Well, I have to tell you that when I took your HR and your OB classes, I didn't really take them as seriously as I should have." I'm like, "Really?" I hadn't noticed because you obviously did well enough in the class. He said, "Yeah, I did well in it, but I never really internalized the work." He goes, and it wasn't until I actually started working for an organization and had all of these employees that I suddenly realized I should have paid closer attention how to manage them. He said, because you were right. I spend 80% of my time on the job overseeing and managing other people's work and not my own. I have my own tasks to do, but most of my time I spend managing others and getting them to do what I need them to do. He said, "I apologize, and I've learned some good stuff, and I'm really excited to continue to do this." So that's the point. It's not any more or less important. It's just as important as all those other things too. All of those things matter. All of those things are the things that you as future managers or current managers need to be able to manage to be able to move on to become the best manager that you can be so your organization can thrive.